So, we are, from the point that I record this video, 5 days removed. 5 days removed? 5 days away from being removed from being able to play the game because of a card that we have coming along in Utopic ZEXAL, and something that's being released in the near future in Battles of Legend Armageddon. Now, I've brought this up on a couple of my streams and in my locals that people have actually asked the question of why is this maybe somewhat of a problem, because they don't understand what's coming and the possibility of not being able to counter it properly. But in order to understand what the problem is, we need to know, well, what is it? What is this card? Now, while I'm doing this explanation, I may fade out. Don't panic. It's just so you can read what's on the screen. So in this talking about Utopic ZEXAL, we're going to be asking the question of what is it? The effect. Why is it so strong? Why haven't we seen it for the last 3 years? Remember, this is a Maximum Crisis Super from the Special Edition. So it's 3 years old at this point. Why is it that we're only really seeing it being hyped up again now? And then what can we do to stop it? So, multifaceted. Now, when we get to the how do we stop it point, please note that this is from the position of going second against this card. You'll understand why when you read the effect. So what is it and why is it a problem? So what is it? So first off, we go through, just read the card and the effect and we understand. This thing is a attribute light. It is a rank 1 technically. It has a question mark for its attack and defense. It is a warrior. Its summoning condition is 3 numbered disease monsters with the same rank. Now, the bottom left is part of the effect, and on the right is another part of the effect. So this card's original rank is always treated as 1. On the card itself, it's actually considered a no-star rank, but the effect means that it's a rank 1 in general. You can also exit summon this card by discarding 1 rank up magic normal spell card, then using a Utopia monster you control as Xyz material. Transfer the Xyz materials to this card. So what we used to see with this card in a couple previous formats, it was that you would summon a Utopia monster with as many Xyz material as possible, and you would discard a rank up magic. I can't actually remember, I think it was Barrier Force, I could be wrong, and then slap Utopia on top of it to give it as much material as possible to do a Pseudo lockout because of the second effect that's off to the side. This card's Xyz summon cannot be negated. You can't summon this. When Xyz summoned, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects. So you can't directly respond to this card's summon. It gains 1,000 attack and defense for each Xyz material attached to it. That's why its attack and defense is a question mark. Once per opponent's turn, quick effect. This is the problem. You can detach 1 Xyz material from this card. That's cost. Your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated this turn. So for their entire turn, they may not activate any effects or any cards, period. They set and they pass. However, when you read this card and you read the summoning condition of 3 numbered Xyz monsters with the same rank, this generally means that you're doing some hoop jumping. You're going to be summoning 3 Xyz monsters. You're probably going to be looking at rank 4s because they're typically the easiest ones to go through. And you need 3 of them to do it. So if you can pull that off, you kind of deserve that monster, right? It sounds strong, but the summoning condition. If you pull that off, you deserve to win. Okay. This is where we need to talk. It's become a problem because of what we're getting in the future. The new set of Battles of Legend Armageddon releases on the 24th of July 2020 in almost all official tournament stores. It's new support for the Numeron archetype, and it makes ZEXAL with just 1 card. It's an amazing go first strategy for any kind of control-based deck. We'll get into the reason why. And in that set, 5 of the cards are ultras and 2 of them are secrets. In a set where every pack you open, you get 4 ultras and 1 secret. So it's actually quite possible in just 1 box to pull enough of all of this in order to actually play the engine to summon ZEXAL. Now, the reason I say it's a great go first strategy for control is because of one of the restrictions on one of the following cards. We'll get to that in a second. But here's the combo that generally goes through. If you open up Numeron Wall, you can discard it, so long as you control no cards or all cards you control a Numeron Wall. You send the card from your hand or field to the graveyard, and you activate a Numeron network from your hand or deck directly. This gets away around Ash Blossom, or you can just use Terraforming because you can just go straight away and grab Numeron network. It is a field spell. Once you have that, you activate the field spell Numeron Network, and then you use its effect and you send Calling. Calling's effect is that if Numeron Network is in your field zone and you control no monsters, you special summon 4 Numeron Gate Exes monsters from your extra deck with different names, but banish them during the end phase. Also, you can only normal or special summon once for the rest of the turn. Now, it's up to 4, so you can just summon 1, 2, 3, or 4. Typically, you'll do 3. You'll activate Calling's effect, you'll summon any 3 of the gates of different names, and then you overlay those 3 into ZEXAL. So, just so we're clear, Terraforming or Set Rotation, the 3 copies of Numeron Wall and the 3 copies of Numeron Network, 8 cards total, gets you 1 card starter all the way to ZEXAL. So now suddenly that really hard summoning condition is a 1 card combo. That's why it's the problem that it's going to be. Because now the ZEXAL lock can be now very commonplace. So knowing that, and also reading the fact of you can only normal special summon once for the rest of this turn, the other thing you need to take in mind is the strict wording of Calling. Normal or special summon once for the rest of the turn. So that means if you summon ZEXAL, you can't do anything else, right? Well, no, it doesn't say normal set. You can still set monsters. And this is why people on my stream know that I'm toying around with Numeron Guru, because you can still set Guru, activate Hin City, and flip Guru up with Hin City because it's not counted as a summon. And it's not counted in any way. It's a normal set, and then it's being flipped face up by a card effect. So you can still do full Guru combo, and now you add a ZEXAL on top of it. And it gives Guru control the boss monster that it's been missing. So this ends up being a problem, and that's why it's so good in control-based decks. So how do you stop it before it appears? Because it's going to be easier to deal with this if it just doesn't appear on the table, right? That's the simplest thing to do, stop it from appearing. I could only find 4 ways. The first 2 is the obvious ones on the board. You think of playing Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. You hit the network on the activation that sends Calling. Ghost Ogre will destroy it. Field spells must stay face up on the board in order to resolve their effect. Ghost Ogre will blow up the Calling. It doesn't resolve. Network has a hard once per turn use effect on sending the spell and then copying its effect. In this case, it's Calling. So they can't just activate a new network and then send another Calling. Once they've done it, that's it. It's over. They have to have a second Calling in hand and activate it from the hand. But that actually there is also the weakness. If the opponent who is playing the Numeron deck opens Numeron Calling, they just play Numeron Calling from the hand, they get around the Ghost Ogre problem. Network just needs to exist on the board, they don't even need to activate the effect. So that's already a problem. The option 2 is to use Ghost Reaper, and Winter Cherries. After they summon out their 3 or 4 gates, depending on how far they're going, you target ZEXAL. This stops the big problem card of ZEXAL. However, if you're playing against a deck that's not playing Extravagance, and not maxing out on all 4 gates and 3 copies of ZEXAL, and they're playing some Link 4 strategies or Link 3 strategies, just other stuff in the extra deck, they can still go and do some other moves with those 3 or 4 gates. The biggest thing is, at least you're dealing with the biggest problem card, and again, they can't normal or special summon after they make that move. So you get rid of the biggest problem, they might go to a 4-stack Apo. That's a lot easier to remove than a ZEXAL. So that's probably the most effective way at the moment to deal with it. The other 2 cards that I consider in this is Dimension Shifter and Flying Sea. The reason for Dimension Shifter is that when they initially activate the networks, they put the network into the field zone. You shotgun the Dimension Shifter at that point because they've made a move, you know what they're going for. All cards now that get sent to the graveyard are banished instead until the end of the next turn. They can no longer send Calling to the graveyard, which means they cannot activate that network in the field zone, effectively stopping the combo. If they have anything else, however, that also doesn't get affected by Dimension Shifter, they can still play, but at least now you're not seeing ZEXAL. Again though, it is double-edged. You're activating a Dimension Shifter, it lasts for 2 turns, your opponent's and yours. So you're going to have to deal with that Dimension Shifter on your turn as well. The one on the right is Flying Sea, and I've actually got to thank Finchola, one of my teammates and follower of the channel. He said, Flying Sea. After the summoning of the 3 or 4 gates, you can use the effect of Flying Sea and summon it to your opponent's side of the board. While they're controlling Flying Sea, they cannot Xyz summon, which means they can't make the ZEXAL. But at the same point, you're also giving them an extra monster on their side of the board. So if they do have a Link monster they can get into, it's the same kind of problem as Ghost Reaper. They can still do something else with the Flying Sea. So at worst, At worst, they do nothing. At somewhat bad play would be making a 4-stack Apo still. So you're still going to deal with maybe a big monster on board, but at least you avoid the ZEXAL. That's all we could find. Nothing else really hits the combo before it goes through. Not cards that you would commonly see anyway. Ash Blossom doesn't work. Numeron Wall activates Network from the deck, or from the hand, but typically from the deck, which means you're not adding it to hand, which means it can't be Ash Blossomed. Same thing with Network. It sends Calling from deck to grave as cost. Dodges Ash Blossom. There's nothing to Imperm or Effect Veiler or any kind of effect negation on the board that you can target with a hand trap, or you know with Imperm or Effect Veiler is the main two, or you can possibly Gamma the wall. That's pretty much all you've got. But if they have Network, you've basically done nothing. Wall just ends up being a bait. But there's nothing you can do a targeted effect negate on the board to stop the combo from going down. Effect negating walls don't do anything. They still make the ZEXAL. You end up having to hold that for your turn to try and effect negate the ZEXAL, which we'll get to. Ghost Bell doesn't do anything. Ghost Sister doesn't do anything. Whole slew of hand traps. Nibiru, if they only summon the 3 walls, they summon ZEXAL, that's their 4th summon, and then they start. Then they can't summon anymore. So Nibiru doesn't work either unless they go further, which we'll get to a bit later. So it's very difficult to find more hand traps that could stop this from happening in the case of if you're caught going second. So, more often than not, you're probably going to see ZEXAL and it's going to say hi, it's going to rear its ugly head, and you're going to deal with that problem. So now you have to make the option of, can you negate it or move it during their turn or at the start of your turn? So from the top already, we've got things like Imperm, Forbidden Chalice, Forbidden Droplets, when we get that, is another choice. Nibiru, Psyframe Gear, Gamma, Driver, post that from the side because you got to play the brick. And Ogre, if you see it late, were kind of like the main ones that popped into my head immediately. So targeted negates like Imperm and Chalice, you use them as chain 2 to the ZEXAL. When they go to shotgun activate it, whether it be during your draw, your standby, they go ZEXAL, detach, and then you go right Imperm on the ZEXAL to negate it. If that sticks, the ZEXAL effect is no longer live, you can play how you like. However, the problem I find with this kind of move is that it's the same kind of problem we have with any kind of these big boss monster, if this sticks, I win kind of strategy. They'll try and play a background strategy that can protect it. Guru control with Fiendus. If you Imperm on ZEXAL and I have Guru with Final Battle, I can flip up the Final Battle and then turn the ZEXAL face down. Imperm loses its target, the ZEXAL still goes through. Same thing goes through with Chalice. And then I've got the Fiendus on Guru to protect Guru if you try to drop something like Psyframe Gear Gamma. I have 2 or 3 layers of protection. I may even have Solemns on the back row. So I'm doing everything I can to protect that ZEXAL. So that's the issue you've got, but those are options. Nibiru, if they summon 4 gates and then overlay into the ZEXAL, and if they try to go to end phase, say in the attempt to leave the main phase, you can Nibiru them there because they've done 5 summons. Generally speaking, you'll only see that in 2 cases, however, and maybe 3. If they're running Memories of Hope, this is the last point, by the way. If they're running Memories of Hope, they may summon the 4 gates to draw 4 because they draw 1 for every Xyz monster on the board. Or if they're going to do that, typically it's because they already have the way to protect the ZEXAL from being outed in the first place after they do that. So they might go summon the 4 gates, Memories of Hope, activate Hidden City, grab Guru, set Guru, flip the Guru face up, add Fiendus, and then make ZEXAL with 3 of the gates. If you Nibiru there, I have Fiendus to stop the Nibiru. You still at least get rid of the Fiendus in hand, but if I've also got Final Battle, you start your turn, I go standby, or draw phase, flip Final Battle, flip up the Guru, add Fiendus, and then change ZEXAL. I've got Fiendus again to still protect my ZEXAL from being negated from things like Imperm and Chalice. You generally need 2 or 3 targeted negates to stop it. Psyframe Gear Gamma is probably actually the best one I've seen so far, one to hit ZEXAL, because on top of negating the effect, you remove it. But you do have to run the risk of having the brick in the deck in Driver. But at least you can summon the Driver from your hand, so it's not too bad. But negating and removing the threat, considering it'll probably be one of itself or one of 2 threats on the board in monster form, is probably going to be the best bet against the ZEXAL lock. Ghost Ogre is there as a caveat if drawn late. If you draw it for turn, you didn't see it before to hit network, you can at least chain 2, blow up the ZEXAL, but you've still got to deal with the effect. But at least you've gotten rid of the threat, and if you can set some back row and protect yourself for next turn and get back to your turn on turn 3, then at least, turn 4. Yep, turn 4, your turn 2, you can at least then maybe play. But that only really works if you're playing a control-based deck, you've drawn into some back row that can tie you over the line. You can't negate it. You're stuck in a position where you don't have any like potential negations. Just kill it. The effect's going to go off. You're going to have to deal with it. So while you're under that effect of ZEXAL, and you can't activate cards or effects, your next big thing is to play big monster cardo that summon themselves without activating effects. So this is a summon that doesn't start a chain. Things like your Mech Knights, your Pankratops, or if you really want to go circa 2008, things like Big Piece Golem and Swashchild Limit Dragon are big enough to pull this off too. Photon Thrash is another one. Just get a big monster on board, run it over, and then set some back row and get to your next turn. This is far more applicable to things like your control and tempo decks that are facing down as ZEXAL, because you're probably already running some back row things like, Called by the Grave or some Solemns, just something of back row nature already in the main deck. And you might be siding in larger monsters as an out to ZEXAL, as well as other stun-like problems like Inspector Border. That's really the final option you've got, is to just kill it and hope that you last until the next turn. Honorable mentions. Now, this is for the case of if your opponent is waiting. Now, this is incredibly niche, but if the owner of the ZEXAL is trying to avoid cards like Infinite Imperm and Psyframe Gear Gamma, they will wait for you to commit a card or a monster on board before activating ZEXAL's effect, because as we all know with Imperm, you're not allowed to control any cards if you're going to use it as a hand trap. As we know with any of the Psyframes, you can't control any monsters if you want to use it as a hand trap. So if they're waiting until main phase 1 and they're waiting for you to play a card so that Gamma you're holding is dead, or that Imperm that you're holding is dead, if that happens and you've got Kaijus or a Dark Ruler No More in your hand, use turn player priority in main phase 1 and Kaiju the ZEXAL. They can't activate it in response, they lose their best card. Or you can just Dark Ruler No More it. The effect can't be activated in the chain because Dark Ruler No More states that your opponent neither player can activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. You've just outed ZEXAL and you're free to play. Absolutely free to play. But it's incredibly niche, and it's only for those people that are trying to be like big brain forehead, in that they're trying to avoid the Imperm problem. They're trying to avoid the Gamma problem. So you probably won't catch very many people with that. But if you're already main deck Kaijus, because you're playing something like Crusadia Kaiju, Invoked Mech Knight Kaiju, and they don't happen to activate it, and you call main phase 1, they still haven't done it, drop it, and they just lose it immediately. The other one, which is thanks to my teammates, is No Material. If they only summon 3 out of the gates and not 4, you can drop No Material and target one of those gates. They won't be able to use that monster for extra deck summons, which means they can't get into ZEXAL. This also works against the Needle Fiber combo, so you can do this against the Synchron players, where they drop Jet Synchron, they go into their plays to try to go into Needle Fiber. Hell, you can even wait for Needle Fiber to come out and then target Needle Fiber so they can't go into Link Cross, or you target the Link Cross so they can't go into Raurodon. There's applications for No Material against the other big player in the room, which will probably be the Synchron combo, because that's still going to be just as oppressive now as it will be when Numeron does come out. So there's some multiple applications there. However, if they summon out 4 gates, this doesn't work. They'll just use the other 3 gates that you didn't target with No Material, and they'll still make ZEXAL, and you'll just be neg 1 for no reason. So you've got to run that pro and con. Now, people will probably fear Nibiru more than No Material, so they will only summon 3 gates, or they'll do 4 if they know they can protect themselves from Nibiru by Guru with Fiendus. So there is that possibility that the fear of Nibiru will have them make only 3 gates instead of 4, which will make No Material useful in that scenario. Take that as you will. It can kind of go both ways. So, for those on the YouTube or on Twitch now watching, did I miss any counters? Let me know either in the chat section right now. If you're on YouTube, let me know in the comment section below. Stay safe. And you can always subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. I do weekly meta reviews, and I sometimes do things like this when it comes to broken boss monsters that need to be dealt with. And for those on Twitch, just follow. I'm here every Saturday. I will see you all in the next one. And good luck with ZEXAL Lock. Dragoons only 5.